Okay, and welcome to episode 11 of IP&O From Home. We're, of course, as always, live from the couch in my room. Special episode because we're bringing it back to the roots. We just have the core three, just me, Rich, and John. No guests today. But today we're going to talk about kind of how we have changed, how our routines have changed, just things we've been doing since we started this podcast until now. So basically from the beginning of this quarantine work from home period until now. So on the first episode, we talked a lot about how we were handling like things like going to the grocery store or just getting groceries in general. And in that first episode, I'm pretty sure I said that at no point like did I even want to step in a grocery store.
Yeah.
And now that kind of changed. I stopped doing Amazon Fresh. I've started going into more stores. It wasn't even grocery stores. I wouldn't go into like any store, like,
Yeah.
restaurants to pick up stuff. But um yeah, I'm kind of just more comfortable doing things like that now, like more routine things. And then, for me in the beginning of quarantine, like I literally did not see anyone except like my roommate. And now since it's been getting nicer and uh by where I am, like they finally started opening up the parks like by like the pier and the water. I've been like meeting up with some people and we like just sit in like a giant circle that's like 36 feet in diameter
Yeah.
because so many of us. And
Do
then
the
we
math.
just yeah, and then we just hang out there. So it's like kind of been like little step by step getting more comfortable with like doing normal things.
I think that's normal. I think that the data that's come out and about, like I usually check the New York City.gov numbers because I just think they're updated a little more often.
Same.
And when I see that hospitalizations are really low, and I know there are other indicators that might be a little more immediate, but that just gives me a little, at least a little sense of comfort to be able to expand the activities that I'm willing to do outside. I mean, I still wear a mask. I just, like this morning, I ran to FedEx to drop off something that's being returned to Amazon, and I wouldn't have done that, I don't think, in the beginning. Like I would have been like, that's not in the cards. But now, as long as I'm wearing a mask, I'm willing to go out and do like normal activities. Um, and yeah, I'll take the kids out. We ride bikes. I feel like that's totally fine. The kids are wearing the masks, and a lot of people don't have their kids wearing masks, honestly. But we just keep our distance. But yeah, we're not locked up in the house like we were, like even 6 weeks ago. We're definitely getting out there more.
Yeah. My experience sort of is the reverse of Paul's, though, in that, like, you're talking about you don't get Amazon Fresh anymore. In the beginning, we couldn't get Amazon Fresh because it was just like there was no windows available. And we tried all your tricks and went on at all the right times and still couldn't find a window. And from, at that point, it was a little bit weird being in a grocery store, but like I didn't mind it. But I haven't been in a grocery store in a month now because everything is sort of flattened out. Windows are available for Amazon Fresh the next day, if not the same day. And so I actually haven't been inside of a store, at all lately. But I was in the very beginning, which it's sort of backwards. But same thing. It's like we've seen some friends. We do the same thing. I have my car with me here, so we drive out. We see our parents from time to time. We sit in the backyard. We'll stop at my parents. We'll have breakfast, and we sit at one end of the table, and they sit at the other. And last week we attended a birthday party, which was awesome. We were, it was the first time I had seen my extended family in a while, like since probably January. And my little cousin turned 10, and we were able to, hang out in their backyard and be a part. It was just good to feel, even with all of the weirdness and, having your mask on at sometimes and not at others, like it was good to just feel somewhat normal for the first time in a long time.
You know, it's funny that you said that, like, now Amazon like had started to get more windows, because, you know, for a while we talked about this, how like it was just impossible. You just had to like keep refreshing and get it at the right time. But then it seemed like instantly, one day I could just get anything I wanted. And I was wondering, I'm like, did someone like in the logistics supply chain there just figure something out, or did like everyone just decide the same day I did that, like, you know what, I'll start going into an actual grocery store, because it was so
Yeah.
like immediate.
Yeah. And, you know, I think another, and this is just a guess, but I think another large part of that is that at the very beginning, nobody really expected, you know, nobody really knew what to expect, how long this would drag out, right? So I remember thinking, you know, when we first went into our quarantine, we were down in Virginia the weekend before New Jersey had this stay-at-home order put in place. And we stopped on our way home and got what we thought would be more than enough for the amount of time that we thought we would be spending. And then once it started to drag out, everybody seemed to flock and try to buy as much as possible. And I think that really sort of overloaded the system. It's like, I'm not going to the store, but I know I'm going to need a lot more. And everybody kept putting in bigger orders, and they really like tied up all of the delivery people and things like that. And then as it sort of tapered off, and people realized like this is not going away and it's okay for us to be in the store, we have safe guidelines now, then, but it did really seem like there was just like one day they decided like you could do whatever you want now.
Yeah.
I thought it was that first day that it warmed up. It just looked like that first spring day. And then everybody was like, you know what? We're not going to be able to do this forever. So we're going to make today the day that we decide to, you know, to break out of this bubble.
Yeah.
But I noticed it immediately, like just in my town, just so many more people out on the street, still wearing masks, but definitely just going about their business. And you know, I think it's natural for that to happen. I think it's probably going to stay that way at least through the summer, unless there's like a serious reversal of the numbers. I'm worried about what's going to happen at the end of the summer when we start talking about the new flu season, seeing if we're going to get a second wave, like a true second wave.
Yeah.
I'm worried about football, honestly, because the prospect of not having a season, it just depresses me. I'm not such a baseball fan, but I'm sure they're suffering too because they didn't get their season underway.
Yeah. Would you be more or less sad to be a Bills fan if there was no football? Like, you can't have a bad season as a Bills fan if there is no season.
You know, but it would be such a Billsy thing to happen that they're now like a legitimate contender and they cancel the season. Either that or B, they'll win the championship this year and it'll be. Do you remember the end of times when we had a pandemic, riot, and the Bills won the Super Bowl? It's like, yes, it totally is appropriate that they'll win it this year.
You know, John, going back to what you said, like how in the beginning no one really knew like how long it was going to last. You know, like if only I knew then like what I knew now, because that first day when I went to the grocery store, like right after they announced the stay-at-home order, I bought like a bunch of stuff. I bought like 2 like big packages like of chicken, and then like you know, however many like cans of beans, like honestly not that much stuff, and I was like, this should last me till all this is over. Like in my head, I really thought it was gonna be like I bought like 2 weeks worth of stuff, and I'm like this will last me.
I know John bought a bag of donuts and said the same thing. He was just like, you know what, I have 12 donuts. Come on.
What more could I need? But yeah, it really wait, so Paul, do you have you made a triumphant return to couponing?
I have sort of, but I'm kind of like, it kind of just depends on like the deals that they have. Like they haven't been really providing me with that many good deals. So I've been trying to navigate that landscape, but it's definitely not the same as it was pre-quarantine. But I'll tell you
Yeah.
what I did do that I'm excited about. So like restaurants are opening up the 15th, and like barbershops are opening up the 22nd. I have made a reservation at a restaurant and a
Wow.
reservation. Is that what you would say? Oh, no, an appointment at a barber, a reservation at the barbershop. Yeah. And you know what? I almost didn't do that at first. I was like, you know what? Let me give us a time. But then I was like, what's the difference between now and a week later? You know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you are
It's
going to go to a restaurant, now's the time. But honestly, I'm not there yet. I don't think I could go
really?
to. Yeah, I'm not there yet. It's just so like it's so like closed in and like there's so much
well,
give
you
Well,
and
it's
can't go in.
outdoors.
It's
It's outdoor
outdoors,
eating.
ah right, yeah. Well, maybe
which
maybe if it's that in a distance, maybe that'd be different.
and like right now is like the time for that anyway. Like this is a period of time where when things are normal, Kelly and I on a Friday night, we get out of work or whatever and we want to go out to eat. We specifically choose places where we can sit out on the sidewalk and, enjoy the nice weather. So it's in a weird way, it like getting back into restaurants
Yeah.
that way won't even really feel that weird to us because like we almost only try to eat places where we could sit outside anyway. So that's going to be like we can't wait. We miss restaurants. We
Yeah.
love cooking. Kelly cooks like really good stuff all the time, but I just want someone else to do all the work, wash my dishes when I'm done. And like that's obviously
Yeah, I
not
could use that.
that's not the big draw of a restaurant, but it will be nice to have like just a great, good quality meal with no work put into it.
Yeah, definitely.
And then like even going back to like work stuff, I feel like I've just gotten into like such the swing of things and the routine that like it just
Mm-hmm.
stopped feeling weird for me working
Yeah.
from home, this whole time. It kind of felt weird like maybe the first 2 or 3 weeks because it's like, everyone's still trying to figure things out. But
Yeah.
like, after that, it's been kind of like smooth
Yeah.
sailing.
Yeah, I did a training the other day with UHR, and I was just sort of put it this way. I feel like doing trainings over WebEx where they can see my screen and they can follow along with what I'm doing is actually more beneficial than sitting in a room with a bunch of people and having it up on the. For whatever reason, I just feel like they have that individual because they have their own screen, they have that individual experience, and they're able to follow along. And I don't know, so that's been beneficial.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of what has made this easier too is just like, we've had a few people on that have talked about what their group has done, particularly to make this transition so seamless.
yeah,
And a lot of like, you know, having Teams, having Zoom, having all of these tools, um, A, either already in place or B, put in place during this, it's really made for such a seamless transition because it's like, even with you guys, it's like we have a project come through the pipeline out of nowhere and it's like, hey, before we get started, let's just hop on a call, discuss how we're going to do it. And in the beginning, that was a little bit weird just because, we've talked about it. We usually just turn around and be like, hey, check this thing out. Let's do this. Let's tackle this way. And it was sort of like, am I stepping over my line here to be like, hey, can you get on a call immediately? But we've sort of navigated that, and I've not run into an experience yet where anybody has been like, no, I can't do this right away, but let's do it in a week or whatever. Like we've everybody seems to have fallen right into their new norm here,
yeah.
and it's really made this whole thing feel a lot better after that first couple of weeks.
I think we're a little more resilient now than we were
Mm-hmm.
because now we have this in place. So if we do in the future have an experience where remote work becomes necessary in a short period of time, I feel like everybody's in a better place now than they were to
Yeah,
just not going to be such a disruption as it was
right,
previously. Like we now know like what the protocols are and what we're capable of, even though we're not able to get together in the office. So
right.
And I think that, like that benefits us. But now when we have a snow day, it's going to be like big deal. You have a snow day. You know the process. Get on your laptop and get ready for your team meeting, because we're used to working at home. It's no longer like this novel. We lost snow days, by the way, is the downside. It's like, now your boss is like, yeah, it's snowing, big deal. We were home for 8 months. Get it, get with the
Get it
program.
together. Yeah.
Okay, so should we kick it into that last segment? Little IP&O from home zone cooking comparison?
Cooking comparison. That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so in the last episode, if you watched it, we had this new part called the IP&O from home zone where we're gonna ask trivia. Since we don't have a guest, we thought it could be fun if each of us describe the best thing we think we made during quarantine, and then we're gonna vote on it, right? And we're gonna crown a winner. We're gonna crown this team's Gordon Ramsay, but you can't vote for yourself. That's the big secret.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna go first. Now it doesn't sound, it's not gonna sound super fancy, but as most things in life are, the more simple the better, right? So here's what we did. We had some boneless, skinless chicken thighs. You know me and my chicken thighs. Big chicken thigh guy. Little bit of oil, salt, pepper, garlic powder, paprika. That's it. That's it on the seasoning, right? We get that pan going with some oil in it. We get that pan ripping hot. As this one chef on YouTube I saw said, if you're not afraid of your pan, you're not cooking. It was really hot, this pan. So I put it in with the oil, then add some butter, some garlic in the pan, get that nice sear going. Boom, it's done in however many minutes. Get some roasted potatoes, and then I made a strawberry spinach salad on the side. And that was my favorite meal. Nothing crazy, but it was so good. Oh, and I put some Parmesan cheese on it. Not like the little grated one that you get at ShopRite. The real deal.
The real deal.
Okay, yeah. You
Self-grated Parmesan?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no other way.
Okay,
I'll let John go. I'll go last.
All right. Well, I mean, you know that I live with a chef. I mean, not professionally, but she's a chef. And she does all the meals, right? So my submission for this competition is actually an appetizer that doesn't actually get cooked, right? So the only thing that I've made, and I've made it several times for, barbecues and, other things, it's an appetizer that we call whipped ricotta, right? And super simple, like Paul said, the simpler the better. All you do is you take ricotta cheese and you put it into a bowl, right? Salt, pepper, and this is the key, right? It's not pepper from a shaker. It's not pepper from a hand grinder. We have a mortar and pestle, and we have the full peppercorns, and we make that pepper fresh. We grind it fresh, and I never believed it before we did it, but it makes a world of difference. You get a lot of the good peppery flavor. You get the oils coming out. It smells amazing. Tastes even better, right? But just some ricotta, salt, pepper, and then we were gifted some olive oils, like fancy olive oils. And when they run out, this whole recipe is going to change because we're not the kind of people who can afford to buy fancy olive oil. But we got this blood orange olive oil, right? And it was, we had them sitting around. We never really used them that much, but we put some in. I just had this idea to put some in one day. And you take a hand mixer, right? First of all, here's the fancy olive oil. My chef, my sous chef just brought it over for me. It's delicious. Try it. Anyway, put it in a mixer, in a bowl, use a hand mixer, and you just whip that ricotta for like 5 minutes. And what it does is it takes a little bit of that heaviness out, really makes it a little bit airy, and like almost like whipped cream, but not quite as creamy. Slice up some Italian bread, salt, pepper, some more olive oil, put it in the oven for a few minutes, and then you just serve that in a bowl with the bread around it. You dip it. Simple.
Sounds delicious. Well, all right. Well, my theory is it's not what you make, it's how you make it. So I'm always making like different meats and things like that. I have a sous vide where I'll cook meats in a sous vide bath for hours and hours before I'll actually sear them and do it that way. But for this contest, I think I'll talk about one of the curry recipes that I make, because I like to make Indian, I like to make Thai curries. I think the Indian curry is a little bit more interesting. What I do is, again, I like also, I agree with you, Paul, chicken thighs, because the meat is a lot more juicy and there's just more flavor there naturally. So what I'll do is I'll take a bunch of chicken thighs and I'll sprinkle curry powder on them, and I will, in a little bit of olive oil, I'll saute those. Once I'm done with that, dump everything, sauce, oil, everything that gets browned in the pan. You got to keep all that. And then I'll take coconut milk, put coconut milk into the pan, start, scraping, again, everything off that pan into the coconut milk. Add a little bit of cardamom, a little bit of hot chili spice, right? Return everything into a bowl. We'll make some basmati rice with some cardamom seeds and some whole fresh peppercorns in the rice maker, and just take a bowl of rice and then spoon that plateful right over the rice.
Wow. Now, I think I could
That's
speak.
a different path.
Yeah, I think I could speak for everyone at home saying we got some delicious meals in the running.
IP&O got some chefs, man.
Yeah.
All right, John, who do you cast your vote for?
Ooh. So this is tough, but I think both of you know that I have the palate of a 5-year-old. Right? That's been established a long time ago. And Rich, as delicious as yours sounds, it's slightly too adventurous for me. So not only does it a little bit adventurous, but the sound of that spinach strawberry salad on the side of those chicken thighs, that's I'm really feeling summer fresh right now, and I'm gonna have to go, Paul.
All right, that's one for the boys back home. Rich, who are you picking?
I agree with John, actually. I like the simplicity of your recipe, and as I said, I'm a big chicken thigh guy. So I thought your recipe was pretty good.
Wow, it's
Yeah.
unanimous. I mean,
It's unanimous.
You
I'll
can't
say
vote
who-
for yourself.
I mean, I'll say who I'll vote for. I will say John sounded really good, and I did like how he described the method. However, Rich said words like sous vide.
Yeah.
He said
He
He
said
was
that
like Vasco da Gama over here dropping
You
spices
know-
that no one's ever heard of.
he was really trying to charm me with those French words and those that basket of spices. I'm gonna have to go with Rich on this one. But I will take the crown as the team Gordon Ramsay. No surprises for the fans at home. I'm sure everyone was rooting for me on this one. And I did it for them. I did it for the fans.
but I would like to get maybe a intercontinental title situation going on with the comments in the video. So
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, if you disagree
Put it to
with
the
if you disagree with the results, please let us know which dish you think is best.
all right, it's on.
All right,
All right,
guys.
so Gordon, as the team Gordon, you get the last word today.
All right, the last word is we want to thank everyone for listening, for sticking with us through this little experiment we've been doing this whole time. And we're gonna keep coming with episodes, new guests, new material, and thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.